and welcome to the Get Offset podcast. My name is Andrew.
I'm Emily.
Yeah, this is Matt Hoops from Relient K and 1981 Inventions.
Woo! It's a pleasure to have you on the show. I am incredibly excited to have this conversation with you.
Yeah, me too. I'm super thankful that you guys asked me to be here.
Yeah, speaking of being thankful, this is our New Year's episode, so Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
Why don't we start this episode with talking about some of our takeaways from the last year and kind of what we're looking forward to this upcoming year, just in the spirit of, is it a holiday? Is New Year's? I guess it's a holiday.
I think it's a holiday. I mean, I don't have to work today.
Well, there you go.
I think it's a great holiday. Yeah, it's like celebrating newness and a fresh start, and it's awesome.
I'm all about that.
I like that. So I guess I can start if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah.
So I just before we recorded this, I was looking through my Instagram feed to see how much like my board has changed over the year, and it has a lot. But that's not really what the year was about for me. For me, it was more getting involved in these communities of people who talk about guitar gear and culture, from other podcast groups like 60 Cycle Hum and the Gear Slum to the She Shreds group, and getting to do an article and some work for that magazine that means so much to me, to getting some of my writing featured on the Fretboard Journal, to just making a lot of new friends in this musical instrument and accessory world. So, I mean, I just really want to shout out people like Kevin Equitz, who worked with me to design the Ainsley guitar, to my friend Layla Sidi, who is going to be building me a guitar this year. And I think I'm hopefully the first build of 2019. So that's just kind of been 2018 to me in a nutshell.
That sounds like a awfully busy year. I don't know how I follow that and still sound cool. Geez. Okay.
I promise I sleep, by the way.
I definitely don't. I'll go ahead and go next, and then I can be bookended by some great years. Yes, my year's been an interesting and a year full of the unexpected. I didn't have any idea what this year was going to look like when I started. I actually started off this year with stepping down from a church team that I was serving on, and indefinitely taking a break from playing music, which historically have always played music for churches. And that was a really big step for me to take a break from that and to focus myself and family. And the year that's followed has been an awfully gratifying year and full of things I didn't expect. I started a small company. I started a podcast. I got a big job. What do you call that? A job promotion. That's what that's called. So yeah, it was just a really good year. Shout out to my wife, who's amazing and incredibly supportive. I wouldn't be able to be doing Fox Cairo pedal toppers without her. I wouldn't be able to do this podcast without her and her support. So thank you, Melissa. You are the best. I love you.
She is the best.
I mean, I'm a little biased, but I would definitely say she is my favorite human on the planet.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. That's how I feel about Rick, who's also been very supportive and patient, and doesn't care when I buy new gear as long as I'm being financially responsible.
Well, you can always sell other things, right, to fund new things.
That's true, but he doesn't like it when I do that. Yeah.
I always run out of things that the sell that I'm not attached to.
Yeah, it's funny. I always like underestimate how much stuff I have to sell and overestimate, or the other way around. Like I always think that, oh, if I just do this, I can do this. But yeah, it's my year has been super crazy. It's been one of the strangest years of my life. The band that I'm in, Relient K, we have not played a show in over a year now, which is crazy. That has like not been the case in the last 20 years. And that's for a lot of reasons, but we just kind of decided to take a step back. And so that has kind of forced me into thinking a little differently about what I do and what I put my time and effort and energy into. And, earlier this year, I think it was June, I launched 1981 Inventions, which is my humble guitar pedal company that makes one distortion pedal so far. And it's been just an entirely has smashed any idea of what I thought it could be. Has really grown in a phenomenal way, and has really been kind of fulfilling to me on a lot of levels. Just getting pedals to people and seeing the look on their faces, and hearing them plug it in for the first time. Some of my friends even, and it's just been that's been a really cool process. I think I do uh, look forward to this next year, to getting back to writing music and making music and recording music, kind of in whatever context that takes. Um, but I'm excited. I'm excited to get there. So
That's awesome. All right. Yeah, that I think that does it for our New Year's recap.
That's the recap, but we didn't talk about resolutions. Well, Matt did. I have the same resolution every year. It's to consume less and to create more.
Ooh, could you not personally attack me, please? That's a really good resolution. I might have to steal that.
Yeah, do it.
I have a hard time with New Year's resolutions. I guess this upcoming year would be to resolve the current conundrum that I'm feeling right now is how do I balance my time between pedal topping, the podcast, my day job, and family. And I the last month or so I haven't spent nearly enough time with family as I would love to, and they've been very supportive of that. And I want to figure out how I can better manage my time without giving up on the the rad things that I'm doing over at Fox Cairo, the super rad things we're talking about here, and still getting to spend a lot of time with my family. So that's kind of what I'm looking at right now. How does that sound? Is that resolution-y enough?
Yeah, that's really nice.
and I think it's always, trying to find this balance that maybe doesn't even exist. Like one of the wisest people that I know, John Foreman from Switchfoot, was once talking about his view of that kind of thing, and he was like, he's like, it's kind of like there's Switchfoot and my solo thing and my family, and there's enough room for two of them. So he was
Right.
just like, for him, it was just a matter of making sure that his family was always one of the two things.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like when you're buying a house and they say you can have, what do they say? You can have location, budget, or, and I forget what the other thing is. Like you can have two of the three, but you can't have all of them.
Yeah, it's funny. Or it's like getting your car fixed. It was like I forget what the thing is. My mechanic had it up in his shop, but it was like you can have it fast, cheap, or good. Pick two.
That's a good algorithm to work with.
Yeah, so I that always stuck with me as I was waiting for my car to get fixed.
That makes sense.
Well, Matt, you've touched a little bit about what you've been doing with 1981 Inventions and Relient K. Um, give us a little bit more. I'd love to hear just for the next couple of minutes before we jump into the main topic of
Yeah.
what we're going to be discussing. Tell us a little bit more about how 1981 started, how that relates to Relient K, and if you don't mind, I'm going to sit back and just revel in this conversation.
No, I love it. Yeah, so 1981 Inventions, I had the idea to start making my own pedal with Jono from Bondi Effects, who has been my friend for a long time. He was a friend of a friend who let me borrow his amp when my amp went down when we were playing in Kentucky. And I texted my buddy that lived in Kentucky at the time, in Louisville, and said, "Hey, I know you have a bunch of amps. Can you bring one to the show tonight?" I literally just blew every tube in my amp. And he said, "Oh man, I'm out of town right now, but my buddy has one." And so it was Jono. And Jono came down and was gracious enough to bring me a really nice amp to use for that night. And that was a huge help. And we just started talking, and he was like, "Oh yeah, and I also make this pedal. It's called the Sick Eyes." And and at the time it was funny because I was like super burned out on a lot of boutique pedals, uh, mainly because I had owned a few at that time. This is like probably 2012, that they were just breaking all constantly on the road, where I was kind of going back to like Boss pedals and like full tone and things like that that were just kind of more mass produced, just because they lasted. And I was like, hey man, I'm totally happy to like listen to your pedal and give you my thoughts on it, but I'm probably not going to put it on my board. It's just I just need stuff that works, kind of thing. And he ended up explaining to me like what the Sick Eyes was, and that how it was based on the Klon, but kind of explained to me some of the differences he made. And I was like, oh, I'm really interested to hear this now. And we plugged it in, and I put it on my board that night, and I played the rest of the tour with it, and it's been on my board ever since. So like that was kind of how that relationship started. But then uh so that was at a Relient K show. I've used the Sick Eyes mainly to get the sounds kind of like on our Forget Not So Now album, if you're familiar with Relient K. Um, and that pedal it just does this like perfect, like mid-rangey kind of clean, but like still very rock leaning kind of sound that is just perfect for a lot of those songs. And so, I became a huge fan of his work. We became friends. We just started hanging out all the time. He would come down to Nashville to hang out with me. And we started the idea with him to make a pedal for me. And initially, the idea was that I just wanted to make a pedal that was very specific to what I wanted out of a guitar pedal. And we tried a lot of different things. I think we did 5 different, like full on like PCB prototypes. So like to the point of like designing, breadboarding, getting a prototype circuit board ordered, and then deciding to go different directions. So it was kind of always this like side fun thing. Uh, and I was always telling him, I was always like, hey, let's just release this under Bondi FX. Like if we land on something, it's like let's release it through your company, and just like make it your thing. Like you don't even have to cut me in, like I just want to make it, like I just want this pedal for me to play.
Right, you're just
Uh
having the time of your life with it.
yeah, like I just want to make something very specific to my needs. And he said, no, no, no. Like the only way I would do this is if, like, if you wanted to release it, or basically like if you want to use it for yourself and you can release it, but I would never release it under Bondi FX. And I said, okay, well, that's fine. And so we started messing around with it, and we did 5 different prototypes, all kind of with different, like a different take on things. Some were more preamp leaning, some were more, distortion or overdrive leaning, some kind of borrowed some things from some classic pedals like Klons and Timmy's, and things like that.
Right, right.
And with each one, kind of just felt like I don't know, it was like after spending a little bit of time with each one, I was like just not inspired by it. I was not ready to go on any of it. And honestly, at that time I knew so little compared to what I know now about how pedals are designed and what makes them good, and all of those things. And
There's a lot that goes into it, yeah.
yeah, I remember we were on tour uh, on the 10-year anniversary tour with Reliant K, and I had the fourth version of the prototype with me then. And I had played it for a few shows, and I had listened to some board mixes, and I could tell the songs. I knew the songs that I used it on, and they sounded so much worse than the other
Oh,
songs.
no.
And I was like, oh no, I cannot use this, but now I need another high gain pedal. And at that point I had taken the rat off my board, and we were in Chicago, and I got on the subway or the L train or whatever they have there. And I went down to Chicago Music Exchange, and I just tried a bunch of things, and I walked away with the Caroline Haymaker who Philippe from Caroline is also a really good friend of mine. And I bought the haymaker then, and I played it next to my pedal, and I was like, oh no, I am so far away from this pedal, which is good.
That's a great pedal, though.
Yeah, no, it's phenomenal, and it's such a cool take on the Rat, and does a lot of cool, so many more things than just a Rat. And I really loved it, and used that for the rest of that tour, and I still have that pedal. It's a great pedal. Um, but anyway, to get back to the story, it's Jono and I started working. I kind of kept working on it for a while, and then he went to move back to Australia a few years back. So he was living in Kentucky. He moved back to Australia, and at that point, he said, why don't you take kind of take over? And I had some friends who were helping me here, and felt like we couldn't quite get like land on anything entirely. I felt like we were like we could get like 85% there. And but during that time, I kind of started getting into used and vintage pedals, and I purchased a 1981 Tube Screamer, which I was like, this is, I don't care what anyone says, this is the perfect overdrive. Like all the other ones are wrong, this one is right. And also a 1985 Whiteface Rat, and I have owned all the Rats, and I've done all the Rat mods, and I've done I've had the Keeley mods and JHS mods and the Wampler mods, and I've done mods and the vodka mods, and I could like go on the Rat for a long time, but I've always used Rats, and I've always been trying to like chase down what it is I like about it and try to make it better, because it wasn't quite doing it. But I also loved it for what it was, so if that makes sense.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
So I mean, the Rat pedal, I've always really connected with it. From back in the day, even I bought a Mesa Boogie dual rectifier and spent all of my money on it, because that's what all the other pop punk bands had. And for that time in the late '90s, it sounded good. It's a very solid amp. But where I figured out that the Rat was more my taste is when I started using the Rat on the clean channel of that amp, and I was like, oh, I actually like this better than the distortion channel. And then I bought a vintage Marshall and started running the Rat through that, and I was like, I think
Is
I
that
like this better.
your giant super lead?
Yeah, that was that amp. And I still have that amp. I still test every single 1981 pedal on that amp because I know it so well. And I remember the show that we were at where I was just like, A being the Mesa, and the Mesa with the Rat, and then the Marshall with the Rat, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is perfect. The Marshall with the Rat is perfect. And I sold the Mesa like the next week. I was like, literally like, this is my new realm. And this is a long time ago. This is like 2001 maybe.
Yeah. This is probably around when you guys would have been doing the record, or a little bit before that.
This is before that. Yeah. So kind of to get back to the story, I had tried to move my design forward for the last few years. But just kind of did it like when we had time off, when we were on the road, and would kind of come home, and I would start messing with it, and I would kind of get to a hard place, or something I didn't understand or didn't know how to fix. And I would kind of just put it to the side, and we would go on tour and do another record, and but I would keep coming back to it. There's something about it that I wanted to conquer, that I wanted to make something finished, even just for myself. At that point, it was Jono, probably like last summer, so like a year and a half ago, contacted me and was like, hey, let's finish that pedal, like send me where you're at with it. And I did, and he was like, okay, let's take some of these ideas, but let's start over. To kind of go back again, I'm sorry, I'm trying to tell like a cohesive story, and I'm telling like three at the same time. At what I was trying to say by the vintage pedals is that I got this 85 white face rat, and I was like, oh my goodness, you know, in the same way that this 81 tube screamer was the best overdrive I had ever played, I was like, oh, this 85 rat is better than all the modded rats. It's better than all the newer rats. It's better than the reissues. It's better than the early big box ones. Like this one is special. And this one is the closest one that I've ever heard to what I want out of a rat. And so at that point, I was literally just trying to recreate whatever that was, because I was like, okay, these pedals are old. There's not a ton of them. They're $350 on Reverb or whatever. And, you know, maybe if I could make one and sell it for less, uh, other people might also appreciate this.
That way they could experience the magic of the white face rat without having to shell out for one that's occasionally comes up in decent condition.
And they get a few upgrades like an LED indicator,
Right.
you know, things
Oh.
like that.
Yeah,
You
I have
know,
a 1989 Proco Rat 2, and I don't know if I could ever move to white face rat just because the LED would throw me off. The lack of an LED, rather.
the LED thing is pretty wild. The good thing about a rat is it's usually pretty easy to tell if you have it on
Oh yeah,
sonically.
it's obvious.
um, so anyway, I felt like this pedal was my favorite, and I have always run rats. This is like the way that I run them almost exclusively. I know some people kind of do the fuzz thing on the top and go high gain and, you know, cut the filter all the way off and do things like that. I always run rats like at the lowest gain possible. And to me, like on a rat pedal, like the distortion knob, uh, when you're moving it up at the bottom, it sounds pretty bad and very thin and very tinny. And you get to this like sweet spot. It's usually right around like between 10 and 11 o'clock. And it just, you know, you just like hear like the low end come back, but there's still a clarity because the gain is down. But it's just like this sweet spot, and you hit it, and you know when you hit it because it sounds perfect all of a sudden. So I wanted to make a pedal that I was like, okay, this is really great, but like everything below this setting of gain is unusable. You know, so basically I took my approach to it, and finally when we finished it was, what are all the things that I don't like about the rat? Let's fix all of those things. And I think I fixed most of them. At least for me. Things that I wish were a little bit different. But anyway, Jono hit me up and was like, hey, let's finish this idea. I'll get on FaceTime as much as you want. We can start working on this. We can take where you were at and turn this into like a fully formed kind of thing. And I said, great, you know, it's looking like our band is not going to play a lot of shows this coming year. I would love something to dive into right now. And so we did. We really went full on. I spent a lot of time soldering and prototyping and learning about how different components make things sound different, and, you know, really learning how to like tweak and tweak and tweak until it cannot be tweaked anymore, kind of thing. It just was this crazy process of like all this timing kind of coming together, and Jono saying, hey, I have time, let's work on this, and me being like kind of feeling like I had hit a dead end in my work on the pedal, and, you know, just kind of feeling like it was this perfect timing. And Jono has taught me so much. He's really like extended such a hand, kind of like what you were saying as far as like, you know, other builders, you know, just being so positive and so like helping each other. And I will say that Jono and I are friends, like on a personal level, so that's like very important to the context of this. Like I don't think he would have done this for anyone, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
um you know, I think we have a special relationship, and he's a very trusted friend.
I mean, it to me it's amazing and says a lot to his character that he had the opportunity for this to be one of his pedals that he would sell and then, you know, make his money on. And he's like, "No, this is your baby. This is your idea. This is your thing."
Yeah, that's actually what I wanted initially. I wanted it to be that. And yeah, like, so also on a business sense, like I paid him for his work to help design my
Right.
circuit board, and it literally says his name on my circuit
Aw.
boards. So I paid him for his work, but he put in so much, like he took so much time and care to like helping me learn how to source components, helping me learn how to, just like literally like soldering tips, just like helping me in ways that like he didn't
Yeah.
have to, for what I was paying him. And that was very much appreciated on my
Yeah,
end.
and I don't think that exists in every industry like that.
Yeah, definitely. And it's, the guitar pedal industry is small. There are not a ton of people building, and it seems like it just keeps getting smaller and smaller. I keep meeting new people, and was just messaging with uh, the folks over at
Oh,
Maris.
yeah.
I had been wanting to pick up an Enzo forever, and I forget how the conversation started, but we started talking on Instagram and just decided to trade one of my pedals for one of their pedals, and I was like, "Oh, this is great! Yeah, I love
Nice.
this." So it's been cool, and there've been a ton of other people in the industry that I have talked to and kind of like become friends with. Really doing what I do, and they are doing what they do.
Yeah, it doesn't feel as hyper competitive as some things are. And I don't really know why that is. I feel like some industries are like you either buy Coke or you buy Pepsi, and there's like two sides. And I'm sure that there are like fans who feel that way, like, oh, I'm a JHS person. I would never buy a MXR pedal or whatever.
Yeah.
But it feels like the builders aren't as in on that, at least publicly. I'm sure things go on behind the scenes and people have opinions, and that's inevitable when you have so many groups of very, very different people selling things or even in a room together. But
Yeah,
it
yeah.
seems like it's not advertised as I very seldom see somebody straight up say, this is like this and it's better than this on an advertising or marketing side.
Hmm.
But I feel like spreading advice and not necessarily trade secrets, but helping everybody improve seems to be a pretty common theme from um, a lot of the builders that I've talked to.
Yeah. It would be difficult for me to list all of the people that have helped me. And I tried to. I actually in my pedal kind of like info page and things like that, I literally put like a thank you section, like I was putting on an album or something, just because maybe that's the world that I know. Um, but like, so in my manual for my pedal, I was trying to thank everyone, and there've been so many people that have thanked me since, or that have helped me. Sorry, not thanked me, that have helped me since the pedal has come out. Even that I wish I'm like, oh, I can't wait to reprint manuals so I can add all these other people. Like Josh from JHS is like, he's been a friend for a long time. I knew him from when we were playing in Relient K, and he would send us, I think John, our guitar player, had like one of the first Pink Panther, analog tap tempo delays that he did, and he was just sending stuff out and being super generous at that point. And I always respected his work, but like he's been so helpful. Like he has literally helped me like with sourcing, with just kind of like figuring out uh, how to get things done, and he takes time out of his day to like take a phone call or to like make a phone call to me, and like that kind of stuff just blows my mind, that he would do that, and I feel very thankful for that. And something I was talking to Grant from Big Ear about was just like, I think we can all kind of respect, as builders, as makers, as designers, we can all kind of like respect someone doing something that feels true. uh and it actually, like, the JHS thing came up because I was like, we were talking about like circuit board mounted power jacks, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with
Yeah.
that.
I know some people love them and some people hate them.
Exactly, yeah, and certainly there are great pedals that have them, and certainly there are great pedals that don't. And we were just talking about it, and I was like, "Hey, wait, does it JHS still has panel mounted power jacks, don't they?" And I was like, "That is crazy." I was like, "That makes me like them so much more." Not because not of the argument of whether it's better or not, but that just feels like to me as something that Josh personally feels strongly about that they've stuck with, even though it might be easier to go another route.
Yeah.
Even if it would save time or money to go another route, they still are like, you know what, we're gonna solder these two cables and we're gonna screw in the panel mounted power jack by hand because that's what we do. And I was just
Yeah.
like, I love that. Like I think that's really cool. And that's not to say that someone couldn't be true to themselves and put out a board mounted power, pedal. But I just say all that to say it's really cool to see people being true to themselves, and I think that's ultimately like the most important thing.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's a huge part of music is just this idea of self-expression, and for that not to play itself out in the world behind the music with the gear is just almost I would say that's disingenuous to
Yeah,
not
yeah.
follow that.
I sometimes talk about pedal makers and amp technicians and auto mechanics. I think there's like the similar thing where you like look at someone else's work, or it's like you bring your car in, the mechanic's like, "Oh, who was the last guy that worked on this?" And it's like the same thing with every amplifier that I've ever brought in. If I'm bringing it to someone new, they'll be like, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe what's going on in here. This is horrible. This is like not the way you do it. This is in the wrong place, like all these things." And so everyone just has their own way of doing it. And I think that's what makes it all good. I think that's what
It just
makes
makes it
it.
so much more personal.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that, so I try to have a little bit of a wider acceptance of those things, and not be a crusty amp guy, which I love crusty amp guys also.
Crusty amp guys, crusty sound guys. They're just,
Yeah, yeah. It's
yeah, they're
just
part of the flavor of this
they
world.
just have like there's one way of doing things kind of guys,
Right.
where I'm more like accepting of multiple ways.
If it works, right?
Yeah, but I do really respect when someone is doing it in the way that they feel, if that makes sense.
Because I mean that's a part of their craft. That's a part of almost a I would not almost that's just a part of who they are.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I love that. And really, I feel like uh, what differentiates any piece of gear is really like nuance. It's really like uh, and that's something I feel like my pedal is rich in is uh, specificity and nuance and like uh, it may not be that different from a rat pedal schematic wise, but it feels different. It sounds different. I decided to leave a rat pedal on my board because I felt like it sounded that much different.
That and rats are just amazing pedals. I'm a self-professed rat fanatic.
Yeah, yeah, and I obviously love them too, and I feel like they have their use, and yeah, it's but still, I feel like what I've been able to create with DRV and with Jono's help and guidance, is this like really cool low gain stage where it's like it's kind of like preamp. So to get in a little bit on the design side of my pedal, there's a preamp that hits a distortion pedal, which is trying to recreate the sound on my board, which has always been. I always run a preamp pedal, whether I'm using an overdrive, the sick as, a rat pedal. Part of my sound as a guitar player is a preamp pedal, like an EP booster or a micro amp. Currently, I have the Union Moore pedal on my board.
Just something like just a transparent boost or something with a little bit of color to it.
Yeah, I guess it could be either. I've had good luck with either, and I think it's just kind of like seasons and flavors, and it's kind of like changing from like vanilla to vanilla bean, is a good analogy.
And don't get me started on double vanilla.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And we don't talk about French vanilla.
Yeah, don't mess around with that stuff. But so like that, but that's always been like such an integral part of my sound, and I feel like the Rat does sound different with a preamp in front of it. So we built a preamp into my pedal, into the DRV, and it's not something that you can adjust. It's a fixed value preamp, which I painstakingly and over months decided the exact values of that preamp, as far as like how it interacts with the distortion side of the pedal. And I feel like it really turned out well. And one of the things that I think really translated the most, and really part of the part of the pedal I think is most unique, is the lowest gain settings. Really from like gain off up until like 10 or 11 o'clock, because those are like, to me, like the unlocked part of the Rat that no one's ever been able to get to. But now it sounds good, so
Yeah.
I was taking all these things of the Rat and saying, well, I don't think the low end's quite right, so we spent a lot of time getting that right, and I don't think the mid-range is quite right, so we spent a lot of time getting that right, and I don't think the filter knob's doing exactly what I want it to do, and so we spent a lot of time on that, and I think it needs to be louder on the output, so it was all these things, and kind of fixing things that I felt like I just wanted to be different for me as a player. And it's been really cool to see like how many other people have been able to relate to that, and I feel like it's hitting a unique spot, kind of for people right now.
Oh yeah, well, just listening to you talk about some of those features, like you mentioned, like with the output. I remember the first time I plugged in a Rat, it was so confused, it was so quiet. It's because unity gain on a Rat is like on the volume knob is like right around 230,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just so much higher than pretty much anything else I've played contemporarily.
Uh huh.
So just getting to hear you talk about the things that you like about the Rat and the deep sense of respect and that you have for that circuit, but also wanting to improve upon the little things that aren't deal breakers for calling a Rat a great pedal. But I I just think that's so cool.
Yeah, so like when I run a Rat, typically I have the level almost maxed out. That's like my setting.
Yep.
And I don't feel like that's wrong. I don't feel like it's I don't necessarily wish it got that much louder. But it just felt like to me like, oh, can we get more output? Yes. Okay, let's do that. Like that was like a pretty simple no-brainer kind of question for me.
Yeah.
Well, I know before in our pre-show chat, we talked a little bit about great guitar stores, and I used to live in Nashville, where you live now, um, and back then, I kind of left right when like Carter Music became a thing, right when grand guitars moved, um, and I do think one of the reasons I wasn't really big into pedals until I came to Seattle was that there weren't really any stores that had a lot of them. There were a lot of acoustic stores. I mean, it's Nashville. Um, but there was one store in 12 South called Corner Music, which I hope is still there. And they had a few things. They had more electric guitars than anywhere else I went. But you were telling me about not East Side Music.
It is Eastside Music, yes.
Aha.
Eastside Music Supply.
Nice.
That is it.
Yeah, and you said they were big in the whole creation of the 1981 and I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so especially Blair and Micah that work at Eastside Music, I just became really good friends with them. And also Brandon. I don't want to leave out Brandon. But yeah, just I would just go in there and hang out and geek out about pedals, and like talk about boards and vintage pedals and Boss pedals. I have a crazy Boss fanatic side of me. But yeah, like we would just had a lot of common bonds when we first started out, and when I first started working on the pedal, and they are a shop here in Nashville, highly recommended, and they just go above and beyond to, you know, get all the Spaceman pedals. They go above and beyond to like and not just the ones that you can find. You know, they'll have like the Aphelion and the Saturn V, and you know, like that kind of thing is like very important to them, um, to have. Uh, you know, kind of like whatever kind of pedals, and they work with a ton of boutique builders, and also some bigger ones. But you know, just their selection and their curation, and just their attention to, uh, you know, it's kind of like a guitar shop for guys that have big pedal boards. You know, that's kind of like, and all of those guys do, and even the guys that have smaller boards are constantly changing, you know, and constantly upgrading and thinking of new things, and really being inspired by that next thing. And but yeah, Eastside music has been such a you know, like a third place for me, you know, like homework and also a hangout place. Really good friends, and you know, they've literally walked alongside me through the creation of my pedal, you know, from like breadboard to like multiple versions of prototypes, to uh, you know, finally, you know, the product that it is now. Um, but you know, the guys at Eastside Music were just such an asset to me and such a help, just in their ability to like be an honest sounding board and to really give me like really good constructive feedback. But also I felt like they were rooting for me. You know, also I felt like just as their friend, that they wanted to see me get to a place where I can not only make something great but succeed at it. So
I love that, and I love that Nashville has that community now, and I'm glad that so many places do, especially in a world where you keep hearing about, you know, brick and mortars shutting down. I feel like um, it makes places like good guitar stores more important.
yeah, I haven't been to a lot of guitar stores in Seattle, but Emerald City, have you been there?
Oh yeah, I used to work right around the corner from them. That's a
Nice.
great
Yeah.
place to spend a lunch break.
I would always pop in there when we were on tour and, you know, play a 50s Les Paul or something.
Oh yeah. Oh, they have a bunch of those.
In the vault.
The Vault. One place, just talking about guitar stores. Um, so I'm from Cincinnati, and I grew up going to a place called Mike's Music in downtown Cincinnati.
Yeah, that place is the best.
Have you been to the third floor?
Oh yeah,
Oh, I love the third
I've
floor.
been all through that place.
Oh, that
When
third
you
floor. I'd never seen it until I went back in October, and I wanted to take my husband. He's like, "Oh, you want to go to a guitar store?" Da, 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 da. And
Perfect.
um, yeah, and he was like, "Okay, I get it." Like pretty much as soon as we walk in, he looks around, he's like, "I get it." And then it was the first time I'd ever been invited to the third floor because I think it was the first time I'd been since I was maybe 17.
Hmm.
And gosh, it's oh, just a thing of beauty.
Yeah, it's insanity. One of my one of my friends was telling me about the old Groons in Nashville and getting invited to the second floor there or something.
Oh, that was a hard invite to get.
And they were like, "Oh yeah, here's Johnny Cash's guitar. It's $280,000." Or here's, you know, like they had all these crazy guitars
Oh.
in there, that were just incredibly valuable.
Yeah, I think
Uh,
my friend Brian is the only person I know who's been invited on his own up
oh
there.
wow,
Yeah.
yeah,
I don't know if you know him. His name is Brian Simpson. He performs as the Whistles and the Bells.
I haven't heard of it, but I should definitely look it up. Huh?
It's good. My husband's gonna get mad about this. I forget what his other band was, but I think they were bigger.
Oh, nice. I'm sure I can find it on the internet.
Emily, that reminds me, you mentioned Cincinnati. Matthew, Emily grew up in Ohio, and didn't you as well,
I
Matt?
did, yeah. I lived
Canton, that's right.
a lot of my life in Ohio.
Yep.
It's actually Cincinnati's kind of like almost the halfway point between where I grew up and Nashville.
That makes sense because it's like 3 or 4 hours to Nashville from Cincy.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's a good halfway point. But yeah, I'm talking about Mike's music. I'm like, man, next time I go up to visit family, I should stop by there because I
Yes.
would mainly only go there. We've played at Bogart's a lot of times. Like
Oh yeah.
when I say a lot, I mean like 15 times.
Did you play
And
Bogarts when there were still Sudsy Malone's across the street?
oh, I don't even remember that.
Sudsy
But
Malone's was a combination bar, venue, and laundromat.
oh, well, that sounds. There are kind of a lot of. I think
Yeah.
that might be an Ohio thing because there are a few of those in the town I grew up in.
Yeah, I mean it makes sense, I guess.
Yeah, kind of. I don't
I
know.
mean, I think it'd be more fun to have an arcade slash laundromat. I mean, they both use quarters.
Yeah, there you go. One save on the change machine.
I'm just imagining. I'm having a hard time here because of your hometown having anything fun to do in it because they always say in Canton you can't enjoy yourself.
Thank you.
Is
Yes.
that a real thing?
Yep.
It's from one of our
It's a.
songs.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm embarrassed.
No, it's all right. No,
How can you
there's
not
no
enjoy
embarrassment.
yourself with the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Yeah, I think I only went there on like a high school trip. Was my
Yeah.
only time there, and it's I'm
It's
a
a
fan of
place.
sports
Yeah.
as a whole, I guess, but
Eh,
I never really felt like it was necessary on a Saturday afternoon to go to the Hall of Fame. Apparently,
no,
so
no. But you were probably closer to like Cleveland. I forget
oh no,
exactly where
like
Canton is.
oh yeah, it's like an hour from Cleveland. So
Yeah. So Cedar Point and stuff like that. I assume
yeah,
was more how you'd rather spend
yeah,
a day.
definitely,
Ugh.
definitely,
Oh, sorry. I could just
the
talk
good
about
times.
Ohio and food and see. I thought we were just going to talk about Nashville. I forgot. I know Andrew's a big fan of your band. I don't think I'd heard of you all until college. My freshman year roommate was a fan. I'm
Oh,
sure she
perfect.
still is. Because I went to Belmont in
Oh yeah.
Nashville, so that was kind of a Christian university.
Hmm.
So a lot of people there. Um, that was kind of the first time I'd heard about Relient K. But um, yeah, I miss Ohio sometimes. I miss the food. Weirdly, I miss the pizza.
That is really weird because you live in one of the best cities to eat, I think.
Yeah, but they don't have Donatos.
Oh, it's like so trashy, but also good.
Oh, it's so trashy and good.
Well, and Seattle also doesn't have In-N-Out, so how good could the food be here?
We have a
Oh,
Cali burger and a Shake Shack.
It's not the same, and you know it.
I just like to say it to make you mad at this point.
I know. I still need to go. I Every time I look up like Shake Shack, I see that like the lines are still like around the corner. When the lines die down, I'm gonna go and follow through on our bet that we have.
Dude, just order through the app. Select a time when your food's going to be ready. You get a text when it is ready. You walk right up to the counter, you pick it up, and then you eat it.
there you have it. Beat the system.
No excuses.
I guess I really don't have any excuses. I guess for context, not to leave you out of the loop here, Matt, but a few episodes back, we made a bet. Now that Shake Shack is coming to Seattle, that if I try Shake Shack and I like it better than In-N-Out, I will peel the In-N-Out sticker off of the back of my
Oh
I mean, I
wow.
don't think you're going
which
to. I mean, you're not going to do it.
Yeah.
I'm a man of my word, but I'm also biased, so it's a bit of a rigged
Well,
bet.
I think
But nonetheless, I'm going to
the
try
only
it.
real solution would be to do a blind taste test on just a normal cheeseburger. One from Shake Shack, one from In-N-Out, and one from Cali Burger.
Can't we all just agree that they're all good though?
Yeah, they are.
I mean, they're
I am sure they're all great. I just have my personal preferences because I spent most of my childhood in
I get it.
California.
Yeah.
I
I'm
get
biased.
having attachments. I mean, can you guys see the correlation between guitars or guitar pedals? Even like let's even just narrow it down to like overdrive pedals alone.
Mm,
You know how you
yeah.
can like it's kind of like a good burger. Like you can talk about the differences from one to the next, but really a lot of it is just like kind of whatever one you're in the mood for in that moment.
Yeah.
But also it can be one like your In-N-Out overdrive pedal, which is like the one that you just are attached to. It's
The
like in
rat,
you.
of course.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, Andrew, remember the other week when I told you I feel like my cat knows when we're almost done recording a podcast episode? Oh,
Yeah, is it
it's
happening again?
happening again.
The cat feels it.
She knows.
Strong with the force,
I
that
feel
one
it.
is.
I feel it all the way here in Nashville.
Oh, that cat force. I don't know if you're a cat person.
I do have a cat. It's it was my wife's cat before we got married, and so he is now also mine.
Aw, what's his
But
name?
Graham, and he's a
Graham.
amazing cat.
Like
So
Graham Parsons?
Oh.
no,
Maybe not.
I don't.
Like Graham Cracker?
She said she was naming him that because she wanted to. That was one of her names for like a possible son name, but she was like, "Well, I'm definitely never having any more kids." And we had a baby like a year ago, so
Oh, congratulations.
and we named him Cedar and
Aw.
not Graham because Graham was taken.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of can't. It's like Indiana Jones when he says, "We named the dog Indiana."
Yeah,
Can you imagine naming your kid after
Indy!
your pet?
yeah, it's
Like, why'd
perfect.
you name me this? Because I had a cat named that. What?
That's beautiful.
Oh, it's a beautiful thing, pets.
I'm just sorry. I'm coming back to like the analogy of dirt pedals and fast food, and I love
No,
that.
I think it's totally true. I typically equate dirt petals to ice cream flavors, but I think
Yeah, that's more different. The burger thing, I
the
think,
burger
is
thing might be more right.
I kind of
I
dig
like
that.
it. So wait, what are your guys? What's your in and out of dirt pedal?
like, what's my favorite dirt pedal
Yeah,
ever?
like the one. Yeah, like the one that you would go back to.
I don't know if I will. I don't know if I will ever take the BD2 off my board.
There you go. That's a perfect one.
But also the Pelican Noiseworks Half Horse. I thought I hated fuzz until I got this pedal.
Yeah, it's a really cool circuit.
Yeah.
For me, I'm gonna have to hands down go with rat.
We also haven't played the 1981. Well, I
Oh, I
haven't.
know. Yeah, I need you. I need to get you guys some. I should have set one before. I'm actually like in the middle of finishing. That's actually what I've been spending most of the last few days. Recording wise. I've been. I took a enormous amount of pre-orders on my last order, and I think it's maybe more pre-orders than one person should take on. In hindsight, but I've been doing everything in my power to get all of those out the door, and I'm doing it. So that is a good thing.
Nice. Well, that's
Um,
awesome.
but once the weather clears a little bit, and I can take a little bit of time off, yeah, I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on the pedal.
Yeah. I mean, I really wanted to get, yeah, was really looking to try to buy one when I don't know if you've gotten the pink enclosures in yet.
I have a few. I have them. I have a large number of them that are being printed currently, so I will have those
Nice.
soon.
Oh, please let me know.
I will for sure. But yeah, I'm really stoked to release the pink one as well. I'm actually thinking about at some point like discontinuing the chrome version, which has been my favorite. But just to kind of take it in more of like it's just seasons and kind of like whatever I feel like in that season.
That's a fun way to
Uh,
do it.
yeah, because I'm like, well, I don't I don't have anyone to answer to, you know? I don't have a board of
Yeah.
directors or like I can just do whatever I want. And I think my company has been like on an interesting trajectory because up until the point when I opened my last pre-order, my pedals had really only been for sale for like 3 different days. I did a first pre-order and those sold out overnight when I released it, and then I did a second pre-order and those sold out in less than a day, and then I did a third pre-order and that one, or not a pre-order, but I built up a huge batch of them and those sold out. And so, I think it's just been an interesting trajectory of like, and I don't say any of that to talk about like, oh, look at how awesome this is, but like uh I did not expect any of those, especially the first one, the first time that it happened. but I think it's set me on an interesting trajectory of like, even in my social media, like I'm not always trying to like get someone to go back and buy something because it's not for sale, like I'm making as many as as humanly possible right now. Um, and that has been a cool thing. But on my last pre-order, I said, okay, finally, I'm just gonna open it up. I'm just gonna leave it open for a little bit, and I'll take in as many orders. My only thing that I'm going to tell you guys is I'm not going to give you a hard deadline of when it's going to ship because I don't know. And I still need to source a lot of this stuff. And I'm one man building pedals, and so it's going to take a while. And it has been just on a sourcing level alone. It has been one of the most difficult uh, things that I've ever done as a human in my life, just like get all the things that I need to sell the pedals. And it seems easy. It seems like, even comparatively to my earlier releases, it feels like things are just being thrown at me, where yeah, I should have had this out a month ago or so or more. But then I'm also like just the sheer volume of like the units that I'm trying to ship. I try to give myself some grace in that. It's a lot,
Yeah, and I
so
mean, you're making them, so
yeah, so I'm doing what I can. And kind of like the main thing, also about like talking about core values, and like I love doing this. I love building pedals. I love every single process of it. I love every part of the process. And you know one thing that I'm not going to do is skimp on anything, or speed through a process, or send a pedal out that hasn't been tested properly, or like even like use a knob that I don't feel like is perfect for my pedal.
mhm.
So that's been like a huge sourcing thorn in my side. But also I feel like that's kind of like what I'm like, why even do it, if I'm not going to be like very specific about what I want and what I want to put out, then like there's just such a value in that I want to like hold on to. And I think a lot of times that makes things a lot harder for me, a lot more difficult, but I feel like there's still value in that, there's still worth in that. So ultimately, I'm just thankful for this. I'm thankful to be able to make pedals. I'm thankful that people enjoy playing them, and I'm excited to make more. So we'll see. We'll see what happens then.
Seriously, I have so much respect for that mindset, that process of wanting to get it right, not wanting to parse off certain parts of the process to someone else because this is something that you enjoy. That's so rad.
Yeah, yeah. So I'd like to keep it like this as long as possible. And it's those are questions that I have, even still to work out in my head. Even it's like, how big do I want to get, or how like even like what are my goals, really kind of like focusing on like what kinds of things do I want to do. Uh, and I think one answer to that is I would like some more time to devote to like developing more circuits. I have a lot more ideas, things that I want to put on my pedal board basically that aren't currently available, and I'm excited to see kind of chase some of those down and see if we can make them into a reality. Um, and then also like I want to keep doing music. I want to create and record, and still have like an outlet on that realm. So we'll kind of see like what happens in the future. But building pedals has been just a super positive thing in my life, and I'm really thankful that is just something that's like I really it feel like in the same way it's kind of like scratching that itch of like creating and putting out into the world, like it feels like I'm doing something important, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
That totally makes sense. And I can relate to on a much smaller level to preface. I can relate to a lot of those thoughts sound like things that I've had the last couple of months as I've been working with my own side project between the podcast and then the pedal toppers, and just hearing that from you is just really cool to
That's
hear.
awesome. Yeah, yeah, I checked out your page on the pedal toppers, and that's awesome. So I'm
Oh, thank
really
you.
stoked to see what happens for you.
Well, hey, folks, thank you so much for listening. We've got a couple of sponsors for this episode that help us put out content like this. They've been so gracious to us, and we're so thankful that they've been as supportive as they've been. First off, I want to shout out to Phil Sakanashi over at Tasty Cables. This episode is actually the first episode I'm recording my microphone through one of his XLR cables. I got it in last night. I got out of the bag, and I just love the build quality on this. I love how it feels. Um, yeah, it's just super sleek looking. I cannot say enough good things about Phil. So that's for you, Phil. Thank you so much for that. And also to Curtis Lamberton over at Lambertone's Pickups. If you have not listened to any of his stuff, go listen to a demo. If if you have the opportunity to purchase something from him, do it. You will not regret it. I've been playing his cremas for probably golly 6 months now, and I just again plugged it in last night, and it just still sounds fresh and new and exciting. And I've never felt this way about a set of pickups before.
Cannot wait to get my Jazz Master cremas.
Oh, I can't wait for you either. Yeah. So he's also just one of the raddest dudes I've ever met. He's definitely worth giving your money to. So, and then, yeah, and thank you so much to Matthew Hoops for coming on the show. Check out his stuff at 1981inventions.com. Also sign up for his mailing list. Yeah, Matt, thank you so much for coming on. I've really, really enjoyed this.
Yeah, man. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, we'll have to have you back on sometime.
Happy New Year again, guys.
Happy New Year.
Goodbye.